Make a fist right now. Squeeze it tighter, a little tighter. Feel your fingers tense. Feel your forearm harden. Feel your shoulders start to activate without you even realizing it. Now keep that fist closed and keep listening. Notice something? Your attention isn't here anymore. It's trapped, busy holding the tension. Most people believe their suffering comes from what happens to them. It doesn't. Your suffering comes from this, from how tightly you grip against what's happening. And the most dangerous part is, you don't even know you're doing it. Murikin Yilda, you have been gripping for so long, resisting for so long, trying to control for so long that you completely forgot what it feels like to let go. The ancient Taoists had a name for this, a concept so simple that most people spend their entire lives misunderstanding it. It's called Wu Wei, 2 words that mean don't force, don't interfere. But here's the problem. The moment you try to understand it, you're already getting it wrong. Not because it's complicated, but because it goes against everything you were ever taught. You were taught that to achieve anything, you need to try harder, control more, think more, do more. But what if all of that is exactly what's keeping you from what you're searching for? In this video, you're going to discover something uncomfortable and deeply freeing. There's a trap you've been falling into your entire life, and you never even noticed it. Once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. Before I show you, I want you to picture something simple. Think about the last time you tried to fall asleep and couldn't. You turned off the lights, closed your eyes, and instead of relaxing, you started trying. You shifted positions, breathed deeper, told yourself, I have to sleep, I have to get up early, I need this rest. And the harder you tried, the more awake you became. Now think about that one important conversation you rehearsed in your head, over and over. What you'd say, how you'd say it, how you'd react. And when the moment actually came, it didn't flow. It sounded forced, stiff, heavy. Here's the irony, the great irony of our culture. We're obsessed with being more productive, optimizing every minute, constantly improving. We search for techniques to relax, apps that remind us to meditate, methods to find flow. And without realizing it, we're doing something absurd. We're trying hard not to try, forcing ourselves to relax, straining to flow, controlling our way into letting go. It's like sprinting faster, in the wrong direction. And that's exactly where the trap lives, the one almost no one sees. We believe we can use effort to reach the absence of effort, but that's impossible. You can't force relaxation. You can't control your way into surrender. You can't think your way into peace. And yet, that's exactly what you've been doing your entire life, turning letting go into just another task, another goal, another thing to achieve. We buy books about inner peace, watch videos about flow, learn techniques for doing less, and somehow turn all of it into more effort, more pressure, more control. But Wu Wei isn't another technique. It's not something you add to your life. It's what appears when you stop adding, when you stop interfering. And to really understand it, you need to see it in motion, because Wu Wei isn't theory, it's experience. It's the difference between someone who struggles and someone who flows. Once you see it clearly, you'll start noticing just how much energy you waste every single day without realizing it. Watch a great musician play. Their hands move as if there's no effort at all, no tension in the face, no struggle in the body. And yet, what they create is extraordinary. Now compare that to someone who's still learning. Every note is a battle, every movement forced. The fingers don't flow, they fight. Both are doing the same thing, but one is acting with Wu Wei. The other is acting against it. Years ago, Researchers ran a study comparing martial arts masters with beginners. They placed sensors on their bodies to measure how much energy each used to perform the exact same movement. The result was striking. Beginners used 40 to 50% more energy, not because they were weaker, but because they were tensing muscles that didn't need to be tensed, forcing movements, resisting instead of flowing. The masters used only what was necessary, nothing more, nothing less. That difference, that wasted 40 to 50%, that's your life. That's all the energy you spend every day trying to control what was never yours to control. The Taoists found their perfect teacher in water. Water is the softest thing that exists, the most flexible, the thing that looks the weakest, and yet it cuts through the hardest stone. It doesn't strike, it doesn't fight, it doesn't force, it flows, it adapts, it waits. And if it meets an obstacle, it doesn't get frustrated. It goes around it, seeps through it, or simply stays. Water has no ego, nothing to prove, and that's exactly why it achieves everything. When a storm hits, bamboo bends completely. It looks like it's about to snap, but it doesn't. When the storm passes, it springs back into place. The rigid tree, the one that refuses to bend, that's the one that breaks. Now watch a cat before it jumps. It doesn't calculate. It doesn't hesitate. It doesn't wonder if it's about to get it wrong. It simply looks and jumps or doesn't. The cat doesn't trust its mind. It trusts its body. An intelligence beyond thought. You had that too, once, back when you were a child, before you learned to doubt yourself. Before you started questioning whether you were doing it right, before you started worrying about what other people would think. Wu Wei isn't something new. It's a return to that basic trust that was always inside you, buried under layers of control, fear, and unnecessary effort. Now that you can see the difference, it's time to face the hardest part of all. Why? Even when you understand all of this, can you still not let go? Because here's where your biggest enemy steps in. Your ego, not as something evil, but as a mechanism that's spent your whole life trying to protect you. The ego is that voice inside you that's always trying to prove something. That you're enough, that you're right, that you can handle everything, that you don't need anyone. And to make that happen, it pushes, controls, forces, resists. Strundle. The problem is, the ego believes that if it lets go, even for a second, everything will collapse, that it will lose control, that something will go wrong, that you won't be enough. That's why you can't let go. Not because you don't understand, not because you're incapable. It's because part of you genuinely believes letting go is dangerous. Some time ago, I lived through something that made this painfully clear. I was in a situation that put me under enormous stress. I tried to control every detail, anticipate every problem, plan every move, rehearse conversations in my head over and over. And the harder I tried, the worse everything got. More tension, more frustration, more of that trapped feeling, until I hit a point where I simply couldn't keep going, and I let go. Not out of wisdom, out of pure exhaustion. I stopped trying to force the outcome I wanted, stopped pushing, stopped controlling. And something happened that I didn't expect. Things started to move. Not magically, but differently. More naturally, more fluid, simpler. Not because I stopped acting, but because I started acting from a different place, without the pressure of it has to work out, without the fear of what if I fail, without needing to prove anything, just responding to what the moment actually asked for. That was the first time I truly understood Wu Wei, not as a concept, as an experience. And it was strange, because the same thing that set me free also scared me. It meant releasing control, but it also meant finally putting down the weight of having to control everything. There's a story from the Taoist tradition that captures this perfectly. A student wanted to go advise a tyrant king. He had brilliant ideas, solid arguments, an answer for everything, but his teacher told him not to go. He told him he would fail, not because he didn't know enough, but because he would arrive carrying his ego, the need to prove he was right, the intention to change the other person. And from that place, no one ever truly listens. So his teacher gave him one simple instruction. Fast, he said, but not from food. Fast from opinions, from expectations, from the need to be right, from the need to control the outcome. Empty your mind of all of that, and then you'll see reality exactly as it is. Only then will you know how to act. That is Wu Wei. It's not doing less. It's no longer interfering, acting without the noise of the ego, without the tension of needing to control everything, without forcing life to be what you think it should be. Maybe you've already felt this without realizing it. That moment when you disappear, and only the action remains, when you're so present that there's no thought, no doubt, no fear, only motion, only flow. Some people call it being in the zone. Others call it flow state. But underneath, it's the same thing. It's Wu Wei. And here's the most important part. That state never shows up when you chase it. It shows up the moment you stop interfering. And this is where everything starts to take on a deeper meaning. Because Wu Wei isn't reserved for special moments or enlightened people. It's not far away. It's not hard to reach. It's happening right now, even as you listen to these words. Wu Wei shows up in the simple things, in the everyday moments you normally ignore because you're too busy trying to get somewhere else. It shows up when you're cooking, and you stop thinking about doing it fast or perfect, and you're simply present, feeling each movement, unhurried. It shows up when you're talking to someone, and you actually listen, without rehearsing your response, without judging, without trying to impress, just being there. It shows up when you walk without urgency, without checking the clock every few seconds, without feeling like you should be somewhere else. It shows up when you make a decision, and instead of spiraling into anxiety or over-analyzing, there's just a quiet clarity that doesn't need to justify itself. And here's the most important part of all. You can't try to reach that state. The moment you try, you've already lost it. Wu Wei isn't a goal. It's not something you achieve. It's what remains when you stop interfering with yourself. It's like breathing. Your body already knows how to breathe. You don't need to learn it or manage it. But the moment you try to control it, it becomes artificial, rigid, uncomfortable. Rud. That's exactly what happens with your life. When you try to control everything, your life wants to flow, your mind wants to settle, your relationships want to find their balance, your creativity wants to express itself. But you keep intervening, pushing, forcing, correcting, second-guessing. And in that constant attempt to make everything work, you end up blocking what already knew how to work. That's why Wu Wei isn't learned like a technique. It's discovered through observation. It's not about changing what you do. It's about clearly seeing how you're doing it. For the next week, try this. Don't try to improve anything. Don't try to be more mindful. Don't try to flow better. Just observe. Notice when you're tense, when your jaw tightens, when your shoulders rise, when you're holding your breath without realizing it, when you're trying to force something to go exactly your way, when you're resisting something that's already happening. And when you notice it, do nothing. Don't try to relax. Don't try to fix it. That would just be another form of effort. Just watch it with curiosity, without judgment. as if you were seeing it for the very first time. And in that act of watching, something subtle and incredibly powerful starts to happen. You begin to realize how much of your effort was never necessary. You start seeing yourself pushing on doors that were already open, fighting battles that never needed to be fought, resisting things that simply are. And once you see that clearly, you don't have to force yourself to change. The change happens on its own. Maybe you'll discover you've been forcing a relationship that lost its life a long time ago. Maybe you'll discover you've been holding on to an identity that no longer represents who you are. Maybe you'll discover you've been walking a path you chose out of fear, not truth. And yes, letting go of that is frightening, because the ego interprets letting go as loss, as emptiness, as danger. But it's actually the opposite. Letting go creates space, and that space is exactly what allows something new to appear. Something you could never have planned, something you could never have controlled, something that simply emerges the moment you stop blocking it. Pause right now and feel your body. Notice if there's tension in your jaw, your neck, your shoulders, your chest, maybe even your stomach. Places where you've been holding on without even realizing it. Nah, don't try to change it. Just observe it, because that tension is the physical echo of everything you're trying to control in your life. And underneath all of that tension, there's something quiet inside you that has always been there. Something that needs no effort. Something that isn't fighting anything. Something that simply knows. That's exactly what Taoism is pointing to. Not something you need to build, but something you need to stop covering up. Remember the image from the beginning. When you try to catch water by closing your fist, it slips away. But when you open your hand, the water stays. That's the difference between controlling and allowing, between forcing and flowing. Wu Wei doesn't make you weak. It aligns you with reality. It doesn't make you passive. It makes you receptive to what's actually happening. The Tao, the Way, forces nothing, and yet nothing is left undone. The river doesn't fight to reach the ocean. It simply flows and arrives. The flower doesn't strain to bloom. It doesn't push, doesn't compare itself, doesn't rush. When the moment is right, it simply opens, and you don't have to become someone different. You don't have to force yourself to be better. You don't have to fight to find your place. You already are what you're searching for. You just have to stop resisting it. If something in this resonated with you, take an honest look at your life and ask yourself, what am I forcing right now? What am I trying to control that actually needs to be released? Sometimes just naming it is enough to start releasing the pressure. Maybe nothing changes externally today. But if you can see clearly, if you can notice where you're gripping, then you've already taken the first step, not toward doing more, toward letting go of what was never necessary. And in that space, in that silence, in that absence of effort, that's exactly where real change begins. See you on the next step of the path.